Melody has always been layered, messy, and sometimes downright exhausting. But no matter how much time passes, no matter how many reunions they've sat through, no matter how many times they both claim they've moved on, Latisha has this way of reminding us all that she is still keeping tabs on Melody. And let's be real, the fans caught it immediately. So let's break down what happened. Recently, Latisha went live on Instagram, and while at first glance it might have seemed harmless, just her chatting it up, connecting with her supporters, the undertones were heavy. The way she answered certain questions, the way she shaded certain topics, and the way she seemed to get a little defensive when Melody's name was even hinted at, it all painted the same picture fans have been pointing out for years. Latisha is not as over Melody as she wants everyone to believe. And honestly, the fans wasted no time dragging her for it. Now let's set the stage. Latisha has been married to Marceau Scott for over 17 years, and their marriage has been a major storyline on the show. Marceau's alleged infidelities, his dismissive way of communicating, and Latisha's determination to present herself as the perfect wife and mother have all been picked apart by the audience. Melody, on the other hand, was married to Martell, Holt until his repeated cheating caused their marriage to completely crumble. Melody divorced Martell, rebuilt herself, and basically became the face of independence, resilience, and bouncing back after betrayal. These two women have been on very different paths, but the show has constantly placed them against each other, and the tension has been real. During the live, Latisha said a few things that caught fans' attention. One of the standout moments was when she talked about how certain people always want to play the victim and act like they've been attacked, when in reality, they're the ones who stir up the drama. Now, she never called Melody's name directly, but come on, who else does that sound like? Fans immediately clocked it as shade toward Melody. And once she opened that door, the comments section in her live and the responses online lit up with people calling her out. Some fans were like, "Why are you still pressed about Melody? She's living her life, unbothered, and you're still going on live talking about her without mentioning her name." Others were more direct, saying things like, "Latisha will never stop comparing herself to Melody." And it shows. And honestly, when you look at the history, it makes sense why fans are reacting this way. Melody and Latisha's friendship fell apart years ago because Melody tried to warn Latisha about the rumors surrounding Marceau. Instead of taking it as concern, Latisha felt attacked, and from then on, things spiraled out of control. Latisha has always maintained that she's happy in her marriage and that she doesn't need validation from anyone, especially not Melody. But at the same time, every time Melody's name comes up, Latisha's entire energy shifts. She gets defensive, she throws shade, and she tries to remind everyone that she's winning. It's like she wants to convince not just the audience, but herself too. Now, let's get into the fan reactions, because they did not hold back. On Twitter, one fan wrote, "Latisha needs to realize that constantly bringing up Melody without saying her name just makes her look obsessed. Melody doesn't even talk about her like that anymore." Another person chimed in with, "It's always the ones who claim they're unbothered that stay the most pressed. Tisha, let it. Go, sis." And then, of course, there were the people who actually defended Latisha, saying she has every right to defend herself. Melody's fanbase acts like she's perfect, but she's thrown plenty of shade too. So, as always, the fanbase is split, but the overwhelming majority seems to believe Latisha is still bothered. What makes this whole situation even more interesting is that Latisha wasn't alone in the live. She was joined by Nell, who we know has become closer to Melody in recent months. And you could tell Latisha was choosing her words carefully because she didn't want to come across as too shady while Nell was sitting right there. But even then, the undertone was there. She can claim she's not pressed all day long, but her actions speak louder, and fans noticed the awkward energy between the two women. Almost like Nell didn't want to co-sign the shade, but also didn't want to call Latisha out right there on live. Another thing fans pointed out was how Latisha kept circling back to the idea of women supporting women and building each other up. She kept saying that she doesn't tear other women down and that she wants to see everyone win. Now, in theory, that sounds amazing. Who doesn't want to hear that? But when you're on live taking subliminal shots at someone, it kind of defeats the purpose. It almost feels like she's trying to use positive affirmations as a cover-up for the shade. And the fans weren't buying it. One person said, "You can't say you're all about uplifting women and then throw digs in the same breath. That's not authentic." And let's be real, this isn't the first time Latisha has been accused of being obsessed with Melody. Back during the early seasons, she would constantly bring up Melody in conversations that had nothing to do with her. Even when Melody would move on to new ventures, Latisha would make comments about how she was doing the same thing or how she was already ahead in certain areas. It always felt like a competition. And that's something fans have not forgotten. So now, years later, when she's still making those same types of comments, it just reinforces the narrative. What's wild is that Melody, on the other hand, really doesn't talk about Latisha much anymore. Every now and then she might acknowledge her when asked a direct question, but for the most part, she's focused on her businesses, her kids, her music, and just living her life. Melody has built this entire brand around resilience, independence, and blocking out negativity. Meanwhile, Latisha seems stuck in this cycle of defending herself against a woman who honestly isn't even thinking about her. And that contrast is exactly why fans keep calling her out. Now, I don't want to make it seem like Latisha is just sitting around pressed over Melody 24/7. She has accomplished things on her own. She and Marcel opened Block Lounge, she's a mother raising her children, and she's been on television. For years, she does have her own platform. But the problem is that every time she goes live or does an interview, she ends up bringing Melody into the conversation, directly or indirectly. And it makes her look smaller in comparison, especially because Melody rarely does the same. And let's not forget about Marceau in all of this. Fans have long said that part of the reason Latisha is so defensive is because she's been humiliated by the constant rumors about Marceau's cheating. When Melody first brought up those rumors, Latisha felt like her marriage was under attack. And since then, she's been determined to prove that her marriage is strong, that she's not the fool people think she is, and that she's actually winning in the wife department. So when she throws shade at Melody, it often comes from a place of trying to elevate her position as a wife compared to Melody as a divorced woman. And that, in itself, is messy. As one fan put it perfectly on Facebook, Latisha's whole identity is tied to being a wife. Melody's identity is tied to being independent. That's why Tisha can't let go of the comparisons. That's deep. And honestly, it explains so much of their dynamic. The more you think about it, the more it becomes clear that Latisha might not even realize how obvious her shade comes across. She probably thinks she's just venting or just keeping it real. But to the audience, it looks like bitterness. It looks like jealousy. And it looks like she's still carrying baggage from years ago. And as long as she continues to let that slip out in her lives, fans are going to keep dragging her. And let's be honest here. Love and marriage. Huntsville thrives off this type of drama. The dynamic between Melody and Latisha has carried a lot of the show. Their shade, their back and forth, their cold shoulders, all of it keeps people watching. So, while Latisha may genuinely be pressed, she also might know that keeping Melody's name in the mix keeps her relevant on the show. And if that's the case, then she's playing the game. But the danger with that is that fans are smart. They can tell when it's genuine shade versus when it's for a storyline. And right now, most people believe Latisha's feelings are very real.